Last year, I made a video on why 2023 was a fantastic year for film, and 2024 had so many phenomenal movies, I thought I'd share some of my favorites. But first, I want to take a look at the year as a whole. I watched so many movies this year, a lot of new experiences, and also a lot of repeat viewings of personal favorites. Before I get into the new releases, though, I want to take a second to just share about how many absolute classics I got to watch for the first time this year. Every year, I go back and try to find different films that I can check off my list, and there were so many that I watched this year that I was really looking forward to. I got to watch Mulholland Drive, The Thin Red Line, Schindler's List, Truman Show, Days of Heaven, Infernal Affairs, all for the first time, and I loved every single one of them. I'm just so blessed that I have so much access to so many amazing films, some that I had to pick up the criterions for. For 2024, I found that overall, I wasn't in the theater as much as I was last year. 2023 had these massive tentpole blockbuster films that you had to see in person, and also they had these smaller indie art house movies that were so much fun to discuss. 2024 had some of this too, but nowhere near to the same degree as last year, in my opinion. I still had some great experiences, Dune 2 and The Substance being standouts for very different reasons. And I didn't work at the theater for the majority of the year, so that definitely affected how many films I ended up seeing. One of my issues with the film industry this year was how many movies I wanted to go to the theater to see, but were just not showing here. It's so frustrating when everyone on your timeline who lives in a major city is posting about how great Nickel Boys and Juror Number 2 are, when they're only in theaters for a weekend or just never come to your area at all. I want to give you my money, just let me. There was also a lack of big blockbusters at the movies this year, or at least good ones. For comic book films, the only ones I ended up catching on the big screen were Deadpool and Wolverine and Joker 2, which is a rough pairing. I'm looking forward to seeing Beyond the Spider-Verse, Fantastic Four, and Superman in 2025, and I'm praying they can rescue us from this drought of great superhero films. Horror had less of a presence at the box office this year, with a few notable exceptions, and Wicked really dominated the conversation in an annoying way. The movie looks horrible but has some good performances and incredible music thanks to a great musical, but the way that it really grabbed a hold of audiences was kind of surprising to me. I thought the movie was decent, but people comparing it to the juggernauts of Barbie and Oppenheimer are crazy to me. Outside of my favorite films of the year, the most fun I had at the theater all year was seeing re-releases. I got to see some all-time favorites at the theater this year. I got to see Spider-Man 3, The Dark Knight, The Matrix, and a few other favorites. I don't know why these big companies aren't just releasing their movies in theaters all the time. If I could go catch Goodfellas or Star Wars on a random Tuesday at a Regal, I would do that every single week. There were some incredible performances this year too. For male lead performances, you have powerhouses like Coleman Domingo in Sing Sing, Ralph Fiennes in Conclave, and Adrian Brody in The Brutalist. And for female lead, you have the phenomenal Mikey Madison in Anora and Demi Moore in The Substance. I still need to see Nickel Boys and A Complete Unknown to really nail down my favorite lead performances, but even without seeing those, there is still a great selection of names here. And before I get into my top 5 films of the year, I just wanted to set a few ground rules. Number 1, the Oscars have not happened yet. I am so excited for the ceremony this year. It feels like there's not a clear front runner, and so anything can happen, anyone can win. Please not Emilia Perez, but there's such a great selection of movies nominated. I'm so excited. Number 2, there are so many movies that came out this year that I have not gotten the chance to see yet. Films like Nickel Boys and I'm Still Here are high up on my watch list, and I cannot wait to get to them, and when I see them, I may adjust my ranking. But for now, I've seen what I've seen. But with all that being said, let's get to number 5. Okay, this spot might be controversial, but it's my list. Get over it. If you don't like the CGI face, you're entitled to your opinion. Anyways, Alien Romulus is the only film I saw this year multiple times in theaters. Compared to last year's 9 rewatches, granted 4 of those are due to Spider-Verse, but still, I got to see this opening night with some friends and take my brother back to the theater a week later to see it again, and I gotta say, it really holds up on rewatch to me. This movie is everything I wanted from an Alien sequel, for the most part. I love Prometheus and really liked Alien Covenant, but personally, this is a bit more my speed. Romulus gets back to the core of the first Alien film and makes these movies scary again. There are a few jump scares in here that had me launched out of my seat. The last 20 minutes were off the wall, and you could tell the director of the Evil Dead remake directed this film. If you prefer the grand ideas and biblical storytelling of Prometheus, this movie probably won't rank as high for you, but personally, this was such a thrilling experience that I had to see it twice. I do agree with some of the critics that the film could have taken more risks with its storytelling, and the previously mentioned CGI face is dreadful and just so unnecessary. It is the worst type of fan service, nobody wanted it, it looks bad, and does nothing to benefit the story. But besides those things, I had a blast with the movie. Fede Alvarez's direction was fantastic, and the use of practical sets was really refreshing. The world felt tactile and lived in, and put you in the headspace of the characters right away. It's like impossible to top Sigourney Weaver as a protagonist for your Alien film, but Kaylee Spaney is wonderful, and I hope she comes back for a sequel. Loved being back in the world of Alien, and I'm really looking forward to what Fede Alvarez does next. The Wild Robot is the best DreamWorks film I have seen in a long, long time. Probably my favorite since Kung Fu Panda 2, and if you're familiar with DreamWorks' catalog, you know that's a big deal. This film is so beautiful, not just visually, and trust me, I'll get there in a second. The film tells a wonderfully emotional story about motherhood, family, and one's purpose. I just love how earnest and sincere this film is. It's not trying to overcorrect or be self-deprecating, it's telling the story that it wants to tell, and you can take it or leave it. Chris Sanders and his team set out to create a sweet, emotional story, and in my opinion, they nailed it. I already said it in my Letterboxd review, but this film has an incredible tone. It never becomes too dour or overly serious, but compared to other animated movies I saw at the theater this year, it's incredibly well balanced. This film isn't just trying to make a cartoon that parents can plop their kids in front of while they doom scroll. This film is trying to be the best film it can be. It is a movie for everyone, from the most jaded animation-hating millennial to your average toddler. Everyone, in my opinion, can find something to enjoy here. And the visuals, I don't think I've seen anything like it in an animated feature film. Seeing these vast, painterly settings and delicately crafted characters was breathtaking on the big screen. The style of animation on display here is gorgeous and needs to be implemented by DreamWorks again in the future. The film has this feeling of a grand epic at times while also sticking to a pretty intimate story throughout. Its characters feel really well realized. I absolutely love when an animated mainstream film like this doesn't shy away from themes of death or loss, because when done right, that is how kids learn what those things are. Chris Sanders directed one of my favorite films of all time, Lilo and Stitch, which also executes this perfectly. Young people deserve good art, and The Wild Robot is not just good, but unbelievably great. Challengers is one of those movies that when I first saw it, I wasn't sure if it was going to land in my top 5. But as the year went on and it festered in my brain, it slowly climbed the ranks. On a technical level, this film has some scenes that took my breath away. Luca Guadagnino's direction was some of my favorite of the year. The final match scene at the end, where the camera is the tennis ball, went absolutely crazy in the theater. Such a good idea that I've never seen executed so well. The score by my GOATs, Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross, was truly great. It was probably my favorite part of the film. It's like they took In Motion from their Social Network score and stretched it for the length of the film, and it was just as exciting as it sounds. The central performances were all terrific. This film tells a captivating, if not hard-to-watch story of 3 people caught in a toxic, unhinged love triangle and what transpires due to their extremely competitive nature. The way the film shifts perspectives and gives you insight into each of the main characters is really well done and makes the film even more exciting than it already was. Because by the end, at least for me, there wasn't one character you were rooting for, as everyone in this movie kinda sucks, but you liked being around him anyway. The subtext of each character's relationships with each other becomes less subtext and just the text by the end of the film, and you can start to see who each character truly is. The third act of this film builds to an incredible climax that had my eyes glued to the screen. This movie definitely will not be for everyone, but I cannot overstate just how much fun I had with it. I just saw The Brutalist in IMAX last week, and somehow it managed to exceed my massive expectations. The Brutalist is one of those movies where you get what you put into it. It's a 3.5-hour long epic with a lot of dialogue scenes, so if you're on your phone throughout, you probably won't enjoy it. But if you lock in, put your phone down, and try to have a sincere, authentic experience, I don't doubt that you will love it. The film is deeply emotional. It follows a Hungarian immigrant escaping the horrors of World War II and coming to America to hopefully create a new life for him and his separated family. Adrian Brody plays a brutalist architect named Laszlo Toth, who discovers that his past work hasn't been forgotten, but is instead revered among the wealthy in Pennsylvania. And we see him try and create a legacy as an artist in this new world. The film has so much to say about what it means to be different in the US, how a country that prides itself on being a melting pot can actually be extremely isolating and cold towards someone that doesn't fit the standard. It says so much about being an artist, the constant need and pitfalls of wanting to create something massive and important that will stand the test of time, which you can clearly see is a passion for the director of this film as well. The lead performances from Adrian Brody and Felicity Jones were spectacular, and Guy Pearce has a really great supporting role, probably my favorite of the year. By the end of the film, you feel so attached to the person that is Laszlo, and all you want to see him do is what's best for him and his family, and to see him succeed. There's so many moments during this film that really struck me. The scene right before the intermission especially. The score is just unbelievable. It's full of beautiful piano melodies and some vast, sweeping compositions that really bring the film to life. There were these pretty soft piano parts that were underscored by these threatening, tense-sounding chords that made me feel a bit uneasy, which really adds to the experience. It's easy during the first half of the film to get comfortable and cozy, while the second half quickly reminds you that this is not a happy, easy story, which reflects the lives of so many immigrants that came to this country hoping to escape a tragedy and were faced with plenty of new challenges in a world they were unfamiliar with. The score has some gorgeous, soothing songs that have just not left my brain since I walked out of the theater. It's one of the only scores of the year that I sit down and listen to in my day-to-day life. Visually, the film was gorgeous. Being shot in VistaVision, it has a deep sense of warmth to it that I just found so intoxicating. I could go on and on about this movie. It really touched something deep within me, and I look forward to being able to dissect the themes and characters for a long, long time. Once I saw this film all the way back in March, I knew it would end up here at number 1. Out of all the films I got the privilege to see this year, Dune Part 2 stands above them all for me, as it was the most exciting and engaging viewing experience I had all year. For me, Dune Part 2 is one of the most thrilling sci-fi experiences I've ever had. Every frame feels like it came from a different world, like Denis Villeneuve transported us into the world of the Fremen and sandworms. It's visually gorgeous, and its sound design was unreal in the theater. It's booming and unashamed of being a sci-fi book adaptation. The film is just as deep as it is gorgeous to look at, following Timothée Chalamet's Paul as he rises to power while the film explores themes of religion and destiny make the screenplay really compelling. Seeing Paul have the role of Messiah thrust upon him and how it affects the characters he's closest to, while affecting his supporters in the opposite way, was fascinating. It explores religious symbolism and fanatical blind worship while still remaining an incredibly exciting, action-filled film. Dune 2 is a wonderful piece of art, not just part of another franchise. It was so refreshing to see a blockbuster that had so much character, such a distinct voice. I was mesmerized for the entire duration of the film. Multiple scenes had me holding my breath because I just didn't want to miss a single thing that happened. It sucks that the Oscars are probably not going to recognize it for its achievements just because it's the second film in a series, but honestly, I can't see Dune being any better than this. Started off the year strong with this, and I'm happy to call it my favorite film of the year. In 2024, I watched a total of 329 films, which is 19 more than last year. I watched 623 hours of film and watched 64 new films that debuted last year. According to Letterboxd, my most watched actor was Samuel L. Jackson, which kind of surprised me, but makes sense because I rewatched so many Marvel movies this year. And my most watched director was Ridley Scott, which makes sense because he's such an incredible director and I got to rewatch some of his Alien movies this year. This is my ranking for the entirety of 2024 at this point in time. And this is my ranking for the Best Picture nominees. I have not seen I'm Still Here, A Complete Unknown, or Nickel Boys yet, but we do what we can. I somehow ended up watching more films this year than I did last year, which kind of shocked me because I think of 2023 as such a better year for movies than this year. But I had a blast at the movies this year regardless. In 2025, I'm really looking forward to seeing Superman, Fantastic Four, Mickey 17, Avatar 3, F1, the new Mission Impossible film, and the new Paul Thomas Anderson film. And thank you guys so much for sticking around and watching my YouTube videos. 2024 was easily the best year I've ever had making videos on YouTube. I've been having so much fun, and I'm really grateful for anybody who watches these. With all that being said, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.